Deanna, thanks. A local state lawmaker is pushing to require one member of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission to be from Western Mass.
House Bill number 424 proposes a requirement that a resident of Western Mass have a seat on the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. More specifically, the bill states that one member of the Gaming Commission must be a current full-time resident of Hampden, Hampshire, Franklin, or Berkshire counties. We spoke with State Representative Bud Williams, who introduced this bill. He tells Western Mass News the Gaming Commission needs someone from this area in order to provide oversight over MGM Springfield.
If I have to raise awareness of actually what's going on down here, we need someone who lives in the area, Western Massachusetts, because when they granted the licenses throughout the Commonwealth, they were regional, east, middle, here. So it would make sense to have a representative who would be here on a daily basis.
Williams believes MGM Springfield has failed to live up to agreements previously made with the city in the casino's initial planning. He adds a member of the gaming regulatory body from Western Mass would be able to bring the citizens' concerns directly to the casino.
You got to watch them. Someone needs to stay on it to make sure they perform at a very high level. They owe it to the folks of Western New England, Springfield, Hampden, Hampshire, and Hampden County.
We reached out to the Massachusetts Gaming Commission for comment on the proposed legislation. They responded by saying, in part, quote, "The entire MGC, our staff, and each of the 5 commissioners take seriously their responsibility to represent the interests of the entire Commonwealth. Each year, our community mitigation program awards millions of dollars to host and surrounding communities to support communities. Additionally, our annual research agenda maintains a robust commitment to studying impacts on communities, and soon we will be releasing a Springfield community-driven research study." The Massachusetts Gaming Commission says they are aware of this piece of legislation and will discuss it at their meeting tomorrow. We also reached out to the MGM Springfield for comment, and we have yet to hear back from them. Reporting live in Springfield, Glenn Kittle, Western Mass News.